Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. The toast started like every other awkward wedding toast I'd ever sat through. But I knew something was off the second he tapped his glass with that stupid butter knife. His voice had that fake cheer it always did when he was about to say something ugly and try to make it sound sweet. I was sitting in the back corner of the VFW hall, holding a styrofoam cup of burnt coffee like it was some kind of shield. The AC barely worked, my blouse was sticking to my back, and every table had cheap plastic flowers and confetti shaped like doves. It smelled like cold ham and warm beer. I didn't want to be there, but I came anyway, because of Carla, not him. Dad stood next to his new wife, Sandy, and raised his cup. I just want to say how proud I am of this family we've built. He looked right at her daughter, Candace, beaming like she cured cancer. "This girl right here," he said, pointing at Candace with a tipsy grin. "She's my real legacy. Proud of what she's doing in public service, just like her old man." Then he waved his glass vaguely in my direction. "And, well, Monica's here too. My ex's kid." I didn't even blink. Not right away. A couple people coughed. Someone dropped a fork. A guy near the front chuckled, then shut up when no one joined him. Just my ex's kid. He didn't say it cruel. He didn't need to. That was the whole point. It wasn't a jab. It was a dismissal. Like I was an old receipt in his wallet he forgot to throw out. "Before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from?" I stood up. Quiet. No scene. No storming. I left my coffee on the table and walked past the dance floor with its string lights drooping like tired eyelids. Outside, the parking lot was a slab of heat. My heels clicked against the concrete as I made it to my rental car. I opened the door, sat down hard, and just stared through the windshield. Sweat beaded on my temples, but I didn't turn the engine on. I thought about the courtroom I'd stood in that morning, the seal of the United States behind me, the oath on my tongue. I thought about the 20 years I'd spent earning my robes, fighting through every room full of men who thought I didn't belong. Not a single person in that VFW hall knew I was a federal appellate judge. And the only words my father could come up with for me were my ex's kid. I pulled off my heels and tossed them into the passenger seat. Then I sat back and let the heat hit me full on. I didn't even turn the light on when I got back to the motel. Just dropped my keys on the dresser, collapsed onto the bed fully dressed, and stared up at the stained ceiling like it might give me a better answer than the one I already had. The air smelled like mildew and old carpet shampoo. The fan ticked every time it made a full circle. I could still hear his voice clear as a recording. "My ex's kid." He said it like I was some leftover mistake from a story he didn't even want to remember. The ceiling swirled into a blur, and suddenly I was 13 again, staring at a water-stained ceiling panel in our trailer in southern Georgia. We lived out past the edge of town, one of those swampy, dead-end roads where the streetlight never worked, and the mailbox leaned like it gave up trying. Mama worked double shifts at the hospital, graveyard nurse. That night, she was trying to make boxed mac and cheese stretch for all three of us. I remember she looked tired, hair still in a bun from work, dark circles under her eyes. She asked Dad to pass the salt and he laughed. "You want flavor? Get a man who makes real money," he said, shoving a spoonful in his mouth. Mama didn't say anything. She never did when he got like that, just kept eating. I was wearing a sweatshirt 2 sizes too small. It had bleach stains on the sleeves. I tried to fix the neckline with a safety pin that kept stabbing me, but it was the only clean thing I had for school the next day. Dad looked at me and smirked. "And look at this one. Can't even be bothered to brush her damn hair." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. I could feel my scalp burning, but I didn't move. I knew if I cried, he'd keep going. He grinned, proud of himself, and said, "2 peas in a broke-ass pod." That night, when he finally left to go get smokes, I remember sitting on the front steps with Mama. She didn't say anything at first, just handed me a washcloth with some ice in it for my head, even though I wasn't hurt. It was just the only kind of comfort we had. She sighed and said, "You ain't what he says. You hear me? You keep going." I didn't answer her. I just kept holding the ice to my forehead and watching the moon reflect off the muddy ditch water. But I heard her. I always heard her. A few weeks later, my English teacher handed back a report card with a note scribbled in the corner. I still remember it. Slanted handwriting in blue ink. "Monica never gives up." That was the first time I ever thought maybe I didn't have to stay stuck there. From then on, I grabbed at anything that looked like a way out. Extra credit, bus rides to the library, after-school jobs. I taught myself how to speak like the newscasters on TV so I wouldn't sound like trailer trash when I finally got out. I studied at night while Mama slept on the couch in her scrubs. I kept a little notebook with that one sentence in it, the teacher's note, folded and refolded until the paper softened like cloth. Monica never gives up. That line got me through more nights than I can count, especially the ones where he didn't show. Or worse, when he did. I blinked back into the motel room. The ceiling was still there. Same weird brown patch that looked like a footprint. I hadn't moved. Funny how a whole life can start in a place people laugh about. Like a trailer park isn't supposed to grow anything but broken families and bad decisions. But something in me grew anyway. Even now, lying in that scratchy motel bed, in the same sweaty dress from the wedding, I still had that same sharp burn in my chest. Not sadness, not even shame. Just fury, because I knew exactly who I was. I'd built a life from duct tape and willpower. I'd made it all the way to a federal bench, and that man still couldn't say my name right in a room full of folding chairs. I kicked off my shoes and sat up. The fan still ticked. I reached over and turned it off. Let the silence spread. I wasn't going to cry. Not for him. Not again. I pulled out my phone, looked at the time, then set it face down on the pillow beside me. And I waited for the next wave to hit. I didn't sleep. I just lay there listening to the pipes knock every time someone flushed on the other side of the wall. Around 4:30, I sat up, dragged the desk chair under the AC unit, and started sorting through emails on my phone like it was any other day. Work always grounded me. Gave me a place to shove the rage when it got too loud. I built everything I have by never letting up. I went to a state college on a scholarship so tight, I had to check in with the financial aid office every semester to prove I still deserved it. I worked mornings at a diner and nights cleaning classrooms. I lived off canned soup and instant coffee, sometimes both in the same shift. I'd study in the library till they turned the lights off. Then I'd study in the stairwell. I wasn't smarter than anybody else, just hungrier. After college, I applied to 15 law schools, got into 3. Chose the one with the best library and the worst winters, because cold meant fewer distractions. Those 3 years damn near broke me, but I came out with a degree, 0 favors owed, and the start of a resume worth something. My first clerkship was with Judge Bauer in the Southern District of Alabama. He was sharp, short-tempered, and impossible to impress, and he took a chance on me because I sent him a handwritten letter and followed up 3 times. I stayed late, took notes no one asked for, asked questions no one had time for. Eventually, he noticed. "You're like a dog with a bone, Sanders," he said once, flipping through one of my memos. "You don't quit." That was the first time I realized not quitting could be a skill. I spent the next 2 decades stacking wins, moved circuit to circuit, wrote opinions so tight they got quoted, built a reputation for being fair but brutal when necessary. I didn't make noise, didn't kiss ass, just kept showing up. Case after case, year after year. Never married, never had kids. Not because I didn't want to, just couldn't fit them in. I didn't have room in my life for people who needed me soft. I got asked out, sure. Even dated a couple men who thought they could handle a woman who worked 80 hours a week and didn't apologize for it. But eventually they all left, or I let them. Now I sit on the 11th Circuit, federal appellate judge. My chambers are glass-walled, spotless, and silent as a church. My clerks don't speak unless they're spoken to. My calendar is booked 6 months out. My robe hangs behind my door, pressed flat, no wrinkles. I've sentenced men who killed, women who lied, CEOs who stole millions, and teenagers who panicked and ruined their lives in 10 seconds. I've heard parents beg, lawyers grandstand, and victims sob like the pain just happened yesterday. I've kept my face still through all of it. And yet, one line at a folding table in a Florida VFW, one sentence from a man who barely raised me, cut through all of it like none of that mattered. My ex's kid. That's what he saw. After everything. That's all I was. It made me feel like that girl again, sitting on a trailer stoop with a cloth of ice and nothing else to hold on to. No matter how far I'd climbed, the ground was still there under my feet, waiting. I looked around that motel room. Brown carpet, yellow curtains, a dresser that might collapse if I opened a drawer. And it hit me how far I'd come, and how little it seemed to mean in that one moment. Not because I needed him to approve of me. I stopped chasing that when I left for college, but because I thought maybe, just maybe, If I showed up clean and successful and calm, the kind of woman no one could ignore, he'd see it. See me. He didn't. He never would. And that should have been fine. It should have rolled right off me like every other cheap comment in a courtroom. But it didn't. I stood up, crossed the room, and opened the curtains. The sun was starting to rise, thin and watery, the way it always looked in motel windows. Another long day ahead, more pretending like none of it stung. I poured some motel packet coffee into the old drip pot, set it to brew, and sat back down. Time to get dressed. I still had work to do. The coffee tasted like cardboard, but I drank it anyway. I needed something to fill the silence, keep my hands busy. My phone buzzed with work emails I didn't answer. The truth was, I shouldn't have been in that motel room at all. I should have tossed that wedding invitation in the trash the minute I opened it. It came on cheap white cardstock, probably ordered online. You are cordially invited, in gold script that looked like it came off a clearance banner, right there in the middle, to celebrate the marriage of Mr. Thomas Sanders and Miss Sandra Wallace below that. With love, Candace, junior bridesmaid. Candace, not Candace. Even she couldn't spell her own damn name right. And me? I was listed as Miss Monica Saunders, with a U not even my name. I stood there in my chambers, holding that envelope, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. My assistant, Lila, walked in with a file and stopped short when she saw my face. "Everything okay, Judge?" "Fine," I said, sliding the invitation under a folder. "Family." That's all I needed to say. A week later, Aunt Carla called, my dad's only sister. She was the one person on his side who ever treated me like I mattered. Sent me care packages in college, called on birthdays, came to my law school graduation even when Dad couldn't get off work. "Baby, I know it's asking a lot," she said, "but it would mean something if you came." Not for him. For me, I didn't answer right away. She sighed. "You showing up?" It reminds folks what's real. I didn't owe him a damn thing, but I did owe her a few quiet kindnesses, and sometimes that's enough. So I said yes. That morning before I left, I presided over a naturalization ceremony. 39 new citizens, families dressed up, little kids waving flags, an old man crying through the whole oath. I wore my robe, stood behind the bench, and said the words I never get tired of, by the power vested in me. After it ended, I went back to my office, changed into a plain blouse and slacks, and folded my robe carefully. I laid it in a garment bag, zipped it up, and tossed it in my trunk, just in case. The drive down to Florida was long and flat, hours of sunburnt highway and billboards for boiled peanuts and personal injury lawyers. I stopped once for gas and a bottle of water, stood under the awning, and almost turned around. But I didn't. Not because I wanted to see him, I just wanted to make sure he saw me. I pulled into the VFW lot 10 minutes before the reception started and sat there with the engine running, staring at the front door like it might open and give me a reason not to walk in. But it didn't, so I shut off the car, grabbed my purse, and went inside. The room smelled like boiled shrimp and hairspray, folding chairs, buffet tables, twinkle lights, the whole thing trying real hard to look festive and coming up short. I kept to the edge, made it to a corner table near the back where the AC barely reached. The tablecloth had a cigarette burn in it, and the plastic fork on my plate bent in half when I tried to stab a meatball. They didn't notice me come in. No one said hello. Sandy, my dad's new wife, was holding court by the punch bowl, bleach blonde curls piled high, 3 necklaces clinking on her chest. She had one hand planted on her daughter's back like she was showing off a prize pig at the fair. "This is my Candace," she said loud enough for the room to hear. "She works for the district attorney's office. Full time. Real legal work, you know?" Candace smiled like a pageant queen and did that little shrug women use when they want to sound humble but make sure everyone still hears the praise. "It's mostly just case files and managing the interns," she said. "But hey, somebody's got to do the hard stuff." People clapped. Clapped. "That's real public service," one man said. "We need more strong young women like you." "She's following in her daddy's footsteps," Sandy added. "Law runs in the blood." I took a sip of water and looked around. Nobody looked back. One older woman at my table leaned toward me and said, "You from Candace's church group?" I shook my head. "No, I'm family." She blinked. "Oh, I didn't realize Tom had other kids." I gave her a tight smile and looked away. They passed around a photo board with baby pictures of Candace, ballet recitals, softball, prom. At one point, someone asked her what she wanted to do next. Maybe run for judge someday, she said with a laugh. You'd win easy, Sandy said. People know a good egg when they see one. I stayed silent. I let them have it. All of it. They didn't ask me what I did. Didn't ask why I was sitting there in a pressed blouse with court-polished shoes and a face they should have recognized if they'd ever watched the news. I heard someone say, "Who's the lady in the corner?" "She's just my dad's first kid," Candace answered. Not really family. Not really family. It landed like a slap I wasn't supposed to feel. I didn't flinch, didn't blink. Just kept sipping my water, twisting the napkin in my lap so tight it tore. She didn't even say it with hate. Just casual. Thoughtless. Like I was a footnote on someone else's life. And still, I said nothing, because I knew what would happen if I did. The whole room would snap to attention. The lies would shrink. The spotlight would shift. But that wasn't why I came. So I sat still, quiet, waiting. Not because I was weak, because I wasn't done. I kept that smile frozen on my face until the clapping stopped. Until Candace floated off to the next table, soaking up more praise for stapling files and answering phones at the DA's office. I took one last sip of warm water, stood up, and walked straight out the side door. The air outside slapped me hard, hot, wet, like breathing through a sponge. I didn't stop walking until I hit the car. I got in, closed the door, and let the silence punch through the noise still ringing in my ears. Not really family, real legacy. The one who carries my name with pride. Funny thing about pride, 2 weeks before that wedding, I'd seen Candace's name on a flagged application. One of my clerks brought it in, said there were inconsistencies on her resume, timelines that didn't line up. A supervisor she claimed to have worked under who, when contacted, said he'd never met her. It wasn't criminal, not even close to disbarment, but it was sloppy and arrogant, the kind of thing that gets you blackballed if it lands on the wrong desk. Mine. She must not have known who I was. There's no way she'd have submitted it if she did. Or maybe she just assumed I'd forgotten her name. Or that I wouldn't care. People like her, people who get clapped for doing the bare minimum, they always think the real consequences are for someone else. That someone like me, the quiet one in the corner, won't notice. But I did. I remembered every line of that file. Every crossed-out title and inflated responsibility. She'd slapped a fresh coat of paint on her little admin gig and tried to pass it off as actual legal work. It wasn't a mistake. It was a performance. And here she was, center stage again, playing attorney while the family applauded like she'd just passed the bar. Meanwhile, the judge in the corner, the one with actual power, the one who'd bled to get it, didn't even get her name pronounced right. I started the car, rolled down the windows, and pulled out slow. I didn't want to rush. I wanted every minute of that drive back to the motel. I wanted to feel it, the truth of what this was. Not jealousy, not even betrayal, just raw hypocrisy. That man stood in front of a room full of people and called her his legacy, while acting like I was the ghost of some broken marriage he'd rather forget. I gripped the wheel so tight my fingers ached. My robe was still in the trunk, zipped up in the garment bag next to a pair of heels I only wore for court. It had been back there the whole time, just in case. And still, I'd sat there quiet. Let them talk over me, around me, like I didn't exist. Like the title I earned, the one that takes most men decades. Didn't matter. But I wasn't going to drag Candace in front of a crowd and shame her. That wasn't justice. That was showmanship. I don't do showmanship. If she had to answer for the things in that file, it wouldn't be because of what she said at a wedding. It'd be because of what she put on paper and signed her name to. I turned into the motel lot and parked under the same buzzing streetlight. The sun was just starting to dip behind the building. Long shadows stretched across the pavement. I stayed in the car for a minute, rolled my neck, took a breath. Then I heard Mama's voice in my head, plain as day. Truth don't need a shout. Just a place to stand. I killed the engine, sat still, and I started thinking about where that place might be. I sat in the car until the sky went full black. The motel's flickering sign buzzed behind me, throwing off just enough light to make the parking lot feel lonelier. Crickets, distant traffic, a sticky Florida night pressing in like a second skin. I didn't go inside. Instead, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I hit his name. Judge Marvin Ellis, retired, 8th Circuit. Sharp as a razor and never once sugar-coated a damn thing. He answered on the second ring. "Sanders," he said, voice gravel and bourbon. "You all right?" No, I said. Not really. Talk. So I did. I told him about the VFW hall, the toast, Candace, all of it. I kept my voice steady, but every word felt like a scrape. He didn't interrupt, just let me lay it out. I got to the part about my ex's kid and stopped talking for a second, like my throat gave out. He exhaled, long and low. You don't need to shout, he said, but don't let a lie fill the room. I looked up at the rearview mirror. My face didn't look hurt. It looked ready. I reached for the trunk release, felt the click under my finger. The latch popped. Judge Ellis kept talking, calm as ever. You let people write the story without you in it. Don't be surprised when they leave your name off the cover. She's a kid, I muttered. Stupid and spoiled, maybe. But she doesn't know who I am. He didn't flinch. She knows enough to lie. That takes intention. I stared out the windshield, heart thumping low in my chest. You planning to do something about it? He asked. I didn't answer. He softened just a little. Sometimes silence gives liars the mic. I looked at the mirror again. My reflection stared back. Not the girl on the trailer steps, not the woman in the wedding corner, just me, as I am. Thanks, Judge. Go on, he said. Get it done. I hung up. No goodbyes. We never did that. I stepped out of the car, walked to the trunk, and unzipped the garment bag. My robe was still perfect, not a wrinkle on it. The fabric was thick, heavy, carried weight even before you put it on. I pulled off my blouse, slipped on the robe, buttoned it up, tucked my hair behind my ears, slid my heels on, 1 foot at a time. The night air wrapped around me, thick and humming. My shadow stretched across the lot like something solid. And then I started walking. The gravel crunched under my heels as I crossed the parking lot. I didn't rush. I didn't have to. I walked like the woman I was, deliberate, steady, with the full weight of truth hanging off every step. Inside, the music was playing again. Some country slow song, barely covering the sound of forks scraping plates and cheap laughter. Through the glass door, I could see them all, clinking glasses, dancing, talking loud like they had nothing in their lives to regret. Then I opened the door. The second I stepped in, the air changed. People turned. Conversations dropped. One woman actually gasped. I heard it, clear as a bell. Is that a judge's robe? My heels echoed against the tile. I walked past the photo board, past the folding chairs and the buffet line and the dollar store flower arrangements. The hem of my robe brushed past a kid's foot, and he just stared, jaw open, frozen with a paper plate in his hand. I kept walking. Candace was near the cake table, posing for pictures with 2 cousins and a friend holding a punch cup. Her eyes hit mine, and her smile cracked so fast it vanished. She looked like someone had slapped the air out of her lungs. My father was standing near the head table. His hand rested on the back of Sandy's chair. When he saw me, he went stiff, chin lifted, eyes squinting, like he was trying to make sense of what the hell he was looking at. I stopped at the front of the room, right between the dance floor and the microphone stand, where he'd given that little toast. I didn't need a mic. I came to wish my father well, I said, voice steady, loud enough for every person in that room to hear. That's all. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. But I won't stand by while lies take up space. A few people shifted. Candace's friend lowered her punch glass. Carla, sweet, loyal Carla, straightened up in her seat like she already knew what was coming. I've listened all night, I said. Listen to people sing praises, hand out compliments, rewrite stories that don't belong to them. I turned slightly, locking eyes with Candace. Let me be clear. This isn't the time or place for consequences. Those come in courtrooms, not wedding halls. She blinked. Her mouth parted like she wanted to speak, but nothing came out. I'm not here to shame anyone, but I won't be erased. Not by a man who couldn't say my name, and not by a girl who pretends she built a future she never earned. My father didn't flinch. He just stood there, jaw set, like silence could save him now. I reached over and picked up a plastic cup of water from the nearest table, held it up. To truth, I said, when it finally walks in the room. Silence. For 1 beat. 2. Then, awkward applause. A few claps at first, then more. Someone stood up. Carla wiped at her eyes. An old man near the door saluted me like I'd just come back from war. A woman whispered, "That's his daughter?" Another said, "She's a judge." A real one. I didn't smile, didn't bow. I just lowered the cup and stepped back. Sandy looked like she wanted to say something, but couldn't figure out how to speak without tipping the table. Candace still hadn't moved. Her hands were gripped so tight around her phone her knuckles were white. I gave them nothing else. I turned and walked back the same way I came. Heels sharp, robe swaying, head high. Behind me, the noise picked up. Chatter, clinking, chairs shifting. But no one called my name, especially not him. I stepped outside into the heat, and for the first time that day, it didn't feel heavy. It felt clean. The parking lot was still thick with heat, even after dark. My robe stuck to the back of my neck as I walked toward the car, but I didn't mind. I needed the sweat. I needed something real on my skin after what I just walked through. Behind me, the doors creaked open. "Judge Sanders?" I turned. A woman I didn't recognize was hurrying toward me, heels clicking, purse tucked under her arm. "My sister was in your courtroom last year. You gave her a second chance. She's doing great. I wanted to say thank you." I nodded. "I'm glad she's all right." Another woman passed me on the sidewalk and grabbed my hand. "Your mama'd be proud," she said, then kept walking before I could say anything back. I wasn't used to praise, not like that, not personal. I stood there, letting it wash over me and fall away. Then I saw Candace. She came out slow, holding her phone in both hands like a shield. Her eyes were wide, but her shoulders were down. No posing, no grin, just a girl who'd run out of performances. "I didn't know who you were," she said, stopping a few feet from me. "I didn't mean to." I cut her off. Calm. "Then now's the time to learn." She looked down at her shoes. The silence between us filled every inch of space. I let her sit in it. "You've got a file on my desk," I said. "It's not criminal, but it's not nothing. You'll have to answer for what's in it," she nodded once. "Okay." "Bring the truth. You'll be treated fairly, no better, no worse." Her throat bobbed. "I will." I believed her. For the first time that night, she sounded real. She didn't apologize. I didn't ask her to. She just turned and walked back toward the building, slow and quiet, like she finally understood the size of the room she'd been playing in. I stood alone for a while, under that buzzing yellow light, then slid into the driver's seat and shut the door. The inside of the car smelled like coffee and plastic. I leaned back and closed my eyes. My phone buzzed. One new voicemail. I didn't recognize the number right away, but the voice, there was no mistaking that. "I went too far," my father said. "I know that. I don't know how to fix it." That was it. No name, no apology, just that flat, tired voice. I listened once, then hit save. Didn't call back. Not yet. 3 weeks later, I was back behind a podium, this time at a university law panel in Tallahassee. The topic was ethics and leadership, but most of the questions were about ambition. How to climb, how to last, how to fight without losing yourself. I answered straight. No fluff, no smiles for the sake of it. "Reputation isn't earned in your wins," I told them. "It's built in what you don't compromise, even when no one's watching." The panel ended to polite applause, and they ushered us into a small reception room. Punch, cheese cubes, future lawyers still half-dressed in student debt and big plans. I stood near the window with a glass of water, answering questions from a group of young clerks when I saw him. My father, standing by the door, alone. No Sandy, no Candace, no drink in his hand. He was wearing a clean button-down, tucked into jeans, hair slicked back too careful. Like he wasn't sure if he belonged but showed up anyway. He stayed near the back for a while, just watched. Then he got in line. There were about 7 people in front of him. Students, lawyers, professors. Shaking my hand, thanking me, asking about clerkships and court culture. I could see him shifting from foot to foot, not impatient, just nervous. When he finally stepped up, he didn't reach for a hug. Didn't smile either. He extended his hand. Firm, eyes steady. And then he said, clear enough for the whole group to hear, "My daughter, Judge Monica Sanders. No more, no less." I shook his hand, felt the calluses on his palm and the tremble just underneath them. I looked him in the eye. "Thank you." That was all. That's all it needed to be. He nodded once, turned, walked out the same way he came. I didn't follow. Later, driving home, I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel small. I just felt clean. Because he finally saw me. Not because I needed him to, but because I stood long enough for the lie to run out of room.